Hello everyone. In this lecture, we are going to discuss about the data and process modeling. So now we know what is data and what are processes, right? Like when we say when I say that ID and password, right? So this we call it data. And when we say the process, means which process? Login. So login is the process. And we have database or a table, right? Table we will have. So what happens? Like from the form, when you add the ID and password, it will go through the login process. Means this is your coding part, right? And it interacts with the database to check that ID and password is correct or not. But this type, whatever I said, like ID and password are data, we enter the data and there is a coding to check the ID password is correct or not. So all these things, if you notice, whatever I was talking about, I draw the some picture or some model like this, right? So when you present your idea, this we call the graphical representation, kind of, right? But how your actual system works, like where from where data flows to where, so everything to show that how your system works and what is the actual use of system, we need a model. So there are basically two models we have: logical model and the physical model. So what is logical model? Logical model normally shows that what the system must do, right? Means we have not yet implemented it, but we can say before implementing that system must do, regardless of how it will be implemented physically. Means logical model is something before the actual implementation, right? And physical model that describes how the system will be constructed, right? Means when we tell like this processor or this form, all the components, like how we connect all the models and everything, that we consider as a physical model, which describes how. So when we say that logical model means what the system must do, and physical model means how the system will be constructed. So for this model, we have data and processing models. Normally three tools we have: data flow diagram, data dictionary, and process description. Using these three tools, we can easily tell tell to someone that how what your system is going to do and how it will do, right? So we will discuss this data flow diagram, data dictionary in detail in coming lectures. So next, okay, so here we have a data flow diagram. Very easy. Data flow diagram is nothing but the graphical representation. It's a graphical representation. Okay. Data flow diagram is the graphical representation. Means we are going to draw something of the flow of the data, right? Like how data flows inside the system from one module to the another. So DFT basically used to show that how data flows inside this system from one module to the another, right? And that we call the DFT. So DFT maps out the flow of information from any process or the system, and it is uses defined symbols. Yes, we have symbols for that, like rectangle, we have circles, that we will see in the next slide. But in short, what is DFT? DFT, or a data flow diagram, is a graphical representation of the flow of the data through which we can know that how data flows inside the system from module to module. So this is about the DFD, and here we have symbols. So see, when we draw the DFD, we have two types of symbols, like one is a Gann and Sarson and the Jordan and Codd. So if you see that Gann and Sarson follows the rounded square for the process, and in Jordan Codd we use the circle. For data store, this is the symbol. So, and for the external entity or any entity, we have a square. Data flow, for the data flow, simple arrow, right? So what you need to keep in mind, okay, so first thing, process, right? So whenever process comes, we will use this symbols, this or this. We are going to discuss Jordan and Codd in detail. For the data or a database, we can say, for the database, okay, for the process we have a circle. For the database we have this symbol, also we can simply write this way. Then for the entity, right, entity means the person who is going to use your system, for that we have simple square, and for the data flow we have a simple arrow. So these are the symbols which we will use when we will draw the DFD for our system, right? And we will use Jordan and Codd symbols. So here we have a description of Jordan and Codd symbols. So the data store, this is the symbol for the data store, and here you need to write the name. So data store or places where data is held temporarily or the permanent, means this is the database. Then entity or external entity means a people, right? People or other system. It may be other system, like when we incorporate Paytm or the any third party tool in our system, we call it the other system that feed the data, right? That feed the data or take the data from the system. Means ultimately they are doing the making the transactions, right? Transaction with the system, inputting data, extracting the data, retrieving the data. So ultimately the people or the person who are going to use your system, we call them the entity, and this is the symbol for that. Then we have a process like it is called the black box, a process that manipulates the data, like inserting, updating, means it's a coding section, logic, actually coding or the logic. Your actual logic resides here, that how data will be stored and passed. And the last we have the data flow, right? So the flow of the data between the data stores, external entity and processes. This we will discuss in the example in the next session. So you need to remember all these symbols, Jordan and Codd symbols, that we are going to use. More we will discuss in the next session.